Hey everyone, welcome back to KU Sports Extra here at KUsports.com. Tom Keegan on my right. I'm Matt Tate. We're going to talk good news, bad news, and all other kinds of news revolving around KU Sports right now.
Maybe even talk some Modest Mouse. Good news for people who love bad news.
It's a great album title.
It's a great album.
There you go. Log on to that when you're finished here. We're going to get you about 15 minutes before you get to that, though. So just sit tight, and I'll give you the good news. The good news, it's very clear. With just a few games left in the Big 12 race, KU clear of the rest of the field by 2 games in the loss column. There are 3 other teams that have 4 losses. KU has 2 losses. West Virginia, Iowa State, Oklahoma all have 4 losses. But Iowa State and Oklahoma play each other one more time. So one of them will have 5. Is this thing over? I mean, I think it's all but over.
All but over, yeah. I mean, KU could get vain, just stare at the mirror and fall in love with itself and
not that you're
lose some games.
Speaking from experience there. No, they could.
My memory's not good enough to remember falling in love with myself.
Well, it's a good point. I mean, they play West Virginia twice still, so obviously there's an opportunity there for West Virginia. But that team's been a little schizophrenic lately. I mean,
it has, but I think stylistically,
it's an awful matchup.
Yeah, because Kansas had trouble with the press, but maybe they'll be working on it so much and it'll just click. But that kind of has split written all over it.
I think so too. Yeah, I mean, first of all, KU's lost 9 times at Allen Fieldhouse under Bill Self.
Right.
Odds aren't good that one of those 4 home games that's left is going to be a loss. It's just, I mean, I don't care who the teams are coming in. And then they still have to go to K-State, they still have to go to West Virginia, and they still have to go to Oklahoma. March 7th, though, if that game against Oklahoma were a little earlier, it could get a little more interesting. But Oklahoma's got to wait to take their real shot at knocking a peg down from KU all the way till March 7th. So I think you're right, all but over. But, gosh, just the simple math of it. 4 losses, you got to figure those teams might even schedule another loss or suffer another loss.
This season is kind of like the past decade in a capsule in that you've got one really good team at the top.
Yeah.
And then you're not really sure who the next best team is. It's so cyclical. One year it's Texas. Another year it's Iowa State. Another year it might be Oklahoma. This year it might be Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So really there's not that one steady superpower. This is a one superpower league and then a lot of good allies or whatever you want to say.
That's the bottom line. Until someone can come into Allen Fieldhouse and knock KU off and prove and serve notice that, hey, we are here to win this conference. Until that can happen, it's probably going to keep adding. And I think number 11's right around the corner. What is the bad news with KU sports or KU basketball this week, Tom?
Jarence Howard, back in July, it comes out now, was arrested for possession of marijuana, hooch, weed, grass, pot, ganj, dope,
yeah,
whatever you want to call it. And that's, an immature act on his part. And at the age of, 34?
Yeah.
And how do you get arrested for that anyway? Isn't that the sort of thing you do at your buddy's apartment?
I mean, he had to be like walking down the street with his bag of weed going, here's my bag of weed. Here's, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't get that. But the worst thing is he didn't tell his boss, Bill Self. They're very close. And he thought he could just hide it and it would go away. That's immature too, and it's just not wise. Bill Self hates being surprised. So he got suspended 2 weeks. Jarence Howard did. He'll miss the K-State game. Can you imagine how much fun the K-State crowd would have had with that one?
No doubt about it. And I'm glad you brought that up because, him not telling his boss was the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, I was
the bigger
thinking,
problem. Yeah.
I don't know if there's a better time, but I got something to tell you.
Yeah.
But never mind. It can wait. We'll do it off the air. No big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Anyway.
I don't care.
Yeah.
As long as you keep getting the scoops on football, I really don't care.
All right, well, good enough. Let's go to statistically speaking. That is bad news, though. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it won't probably impact the wins or losses, but it's just not a good look for any program, and it really hurts Howard's credibility with his players that he sits there and preaches, do the right things, make good choices. How can he tell anyone
And if he's hiding that from his boss has got to wonder what else is he hiding.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know what his future is. I do know he's suspended for 2 weeks and is back. It's better than Brian Williams' 6-month suspension.
Yeah.
And I don't think he'll ever be back. But since Jarence Howard recruited Cliff Alexander, let me give you Cliff Alexander for statistically speaking.
All right. It's a good one because Cliff Spinnan's back in the starting lineup.
Yep.
Obviously, he's there and maybe staying there for the rest of the season if things go well. So good stat, bad stat. I was looking at his stats just the other day because he was starting. And in Big 12 play, Cliff's averaging 8 points and 6 boards a game. That's pretty good numbers. I mean, for a guy that's not playing a ton, not bad. That's where the bad stat comes in, though. 18.6 minutes. That's not enough for a guy that can put up 8 and 6 in 18 minutes. You give him 7, 8, 9 more minutes, those could easily be 12 and 10 every night. And as we saw against Texas Tech, it could improve the presence in the lane, both defensively and offensively. And I just think Cliff Alexander is a momentum guy. I think if he can just stack a few good games with that energy and momentum on top of itself, I think he could really turn into, you've been talking about it for a long time, that he could be the guy that does take this team from really solid to legit contender.
Right. And this year when you talk about legit contenders, I have to always add the qualifier. If Kentucky gets knocked out
or
of the tournament.
Contender just to get to the Final Four.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, because that's what everybody remembers. That's a big one anyway. Title contender, good luck. I mean, Kentucky, every close game they've had, LSU, Ole Miss, whoever it is, Florida, they're right there. Somebody's right there. And then the last 2, 3, whatever minutes it is, Kentucky just absolutely clamps down defensively.
Yeah, and they play great. And they have great athletes out there, great size. You can play great defense doing that, but also whatever it takes to win, they'll do it. They made 21 of 22 free throws against Florida.
Right.
So that's huge.
Yeah, so good stat, 8.6 rebounds in Big 12 play. Bad stat, only 18 minutes. He is in the starting lineup, and Bill Self said he's probably going to stay there unless something crazy happens. He wants him to be a 25-plus minute a game kind of guy. If he becomes that, I think a double-double every night, it might be a little high to expect that, but I think it's certainly within Alexander's capabilities, and it would help KU tremendously. I want to talk to you about three-point shooting. It's been kind of a hot topic right now.
Yep.
Before we move on to prediction time and all that stuff, I just want to hear your take on the three-point shooting controversy, if you will, around this team. Look, these guys are lights-out shooters from the outside. They're red hot right now. They've got guys that are comfortable shooting that all over the floor. But Bill Self continues to say that's fool's gold. We can't bank on 50% from the field or from the three-point range. And he's right, and I've written blogs about it, and I totally agree with him. I do not think that this is the team or any team that can just sit there and count on three-point shooting to win basketball games over time. Where do you stand?
Where I stand is that they had a few three-pointers blocked, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And
you almost never see that.
No, and you don't see that if you pound the ball inside, if you move the ball so well that the defense can't catch up. And by moving, that means inside, too.
Right.
You're not going to get three-pointers blocked. You're going to shoot an even higher percentage of three-pointers. You're going to score more points from three-point range, even with taking fewer shots. Second half against
Tech. Perfect example.
It was a perfect example of that. So
5 for 13 in the first half from three-point range,
and
next
6
to
for
nothing
7.
inside, and 6 for 7 in the second half with a lot more inside.
Yeah.
And a lot more ball movement and
it
touches.
was a perfect illustration of the way they need to play, and they'll naturally take more three-pointers once Brandon Green's minutes continue to rise, and I believe they will, just because he's such a weapon and such an outstanding shooter. It's unbelievable how good a shooter he is. So, you encourage him to take open threes, and you're going to get open threes, but don't take contested threes. There's no point in doing that.
Right.
So I think that the better they get inside, the better they'll get outside. Look at the 2008 National Championship team. What made them special was the way they moved the ball.
No doubt.
And Darnell Jackson was really more of a 15-point jump shooter and an offensive rebound guy than he was.
What
did I call
15-point.
That's 15-foot
video game, one of those circles that lights up on fire, and you shoot from there, and you get 15 points.
I didn't know about that.
It's a good game.
But 15-footers and putbacks and stuff like that. He wasn't a low post, dump it down to guy.
Neither was Darrell Arthur.
And Darrell Arthur was closer to that, but he wasn't really. They got it by moving the ball great and got a lot of inside buckets, but also shot a very high percentage three. They had good three-point shooters, so the way to take advantage of your three-point shooters is to establish an inside game.
I really think transition is another way. I mean, Coach Self talked about it. He said there are ways to get more twos. It can be driving it to the rim. It can be in transition. It can be in the post. It can be on the offensive glass. There are all kinds of ways, but I think this team is still not even close to tapped its potential on transition points. I think these guys can get up and run even more than they do.
And Kelly Oubre, if he
oh my gosh,
plays
that's the guy.
Energy all the time and is totally tuned in, and it wavers. It seems to waver with him a little bit, and that's typical of a freshman.
Right, exactly. So, interesting stuff. I don't think three-pointers are bad. I'm a fan.
I love three-pointers.
Exactly. The Iowa State-Oklahoma game on Monday night was fantastic, chucking threes left and right. But they were doing it off a good ball movement. They were doing it within the flow of the offense and rhythm and all those things.
Iowa State's a good example. They have good three-point shooting, but they do it so much. And the farther you get from the basket, the more inconsistent you're going to be as a team, even a really good team.
Right.
So they lost at Texas Tech. They're a way better team than that.
Yeah.
But they couldn't make threes that night. It was a horrible number, something like 1 for 17 or something out there. So that's not going to be as consistent as the free throws, which Kansas has been consistent with lately, or the baskets closer to the hoop.
Yeah, good stuff. I like it. Well, let's talk KU Baylor. Noon on Saturday at the Fieldhouse. It was the Big 12 opener on January 7th when KU went down to Waco and got this chase for title number 11 off on a great note. I mean, a 1-point hard-fought victory over the Bears down there. Not the most incredible and tough environment, but still, winning on the road is winning on the road. So Baylor's back, and I'm sure they're looking for revenge. They're red hot right now. Who do you pick? KU at home against Baylor, noon on Saturday.
Well, I think it's KU, obviously. Playing at home, it's hard to beat them.
Right.
Baylor's a good team, and Kansas knows that. They barely got out of Waco with a win, so it's not like they're going to take Baylor lightly. I think it's better to face a team on the road first if you're Kansas than second, because if you blow them out at home, then you go down to Waco, there's a good chance you don't take them seriously and you lose.
Just like Iowa State, it was perfect. They went up there first, then they came back here and got the revenge they needed. I'm with you. I think KU wins. I do think Baylor's going to put up a heck of a fight. I think they're tough. I think they're a tough matchup. They play a zone, and it's going to be really interesting to see KU's three-point shooting in this one. Does it stay as hot as it's been? I mean, against the zone, a lot of people like to say, hey, you can shoot a team out of a zone. But Baylor's zone is different, and Bill Self talked about that today. He talked about that, they're not as worried about the middle. They really extend it. They really pressure on the wings. They don't like to let you get the ball in the low, short corner areas and stuff like that where you can pass out and get more shots. So their zone really gave KU trouble in Waco, and the only reason KU was bailed out in that game was Jamari Traylor found a way to attack it. Jamari Traylor's not playing very well. His confidence is not very high right now. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody can kind of fill that role. And if they can't, then it will be live or die by the three-pointer. But I got KU. Who does your primetime pick?
Perry Ellis, for the reason you just explained, that they don't worry as much about the middle and they're vulnerable to attacking that zone with a big man driving, and Perry Ellis does that better than anybody. I think Perry has got his best basketball remaining in him for the rest of the year, and I'm looking for a big game from him on Saturday.
I love it. I wanted to pick Perry as well for that very reason. I don't think Jamari's going to be up for it, but I think Perry can do that and more, what you saw from Jamari Traylor in Waco. I'm going to go with Frank Mason, though. I think he can hit some shots, and I think he can get into the teeth of that zone and really loosen it up. Look no farther or further than the play he made at the end of the first half against Texas Tech. Wayne Selden's hanging out in the corner. Frank Mason drives it, takes the contact, gets into the teeth, gets physically beat up, and still kicks it out. Perfect catch for Selden. All he has to do is go make the shot.
Yep.
Everybody's screaming, Selden, 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 Selden. That was 100% or 99% Frank Mason who made that play. Look for more of those this weekend against Baylor. The guy is just so solid at that, and I think he'll do a lot of that this weekend. So
he's terrific. That's one thing I've always liked about college basketball is watching freshmen become sophomores.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, now the most talented of freshmen, sometimes you never see them play well.
Yeah, they don't become sophomores.
Yeah, and you've never even seen them play well, and your memory of them isn't going to be that great.
All right, let's move on to reader comment time. We got a bunch more this week, so thanks for bringing those to us, and keep them coming to basmith@ljworld.com via email or Twitter @KUsports with the hashtag AskExtra, or you can put it in the comments section below this fine video that you're watching. And this week, Tom, comes from our guy, Joe Ross, one of your favorites.
Yep.
Joe Ross, it's a good one. It's not really KU related, but I think it's a good one, and I think it's very timely. Question: how long before Rick Barnes is out as head coach at the University of Texas? You return all your starting lineup. You had one of the top recruits in the nation. You are predicted to win a competitive conference, and you lay a goose egg. Texas has shown they will remove the old guard in favor of young blood. Mac Brown, anyone? I just have to think that with a fan following as big as Texas, they're not going to tolerate seasons like this when they have the talent and the rest of the Big 12 is getting praised for their competitive play. Joe Ross's prediction: Barnes is out at the end of the season. Tom, your prediction?
I have a hard time disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
Unless Texas can turn it around and make a little run in the tournament. Got to get to the tournament first. I think they'll do that. But this could be the year where they pull the plug on Rick Barnes.
I tell you, Rick Barnes is that guy, though. He's that guy has survived over and over, like a cat with 9 lives, like you just
Bonnie
talked
Hendrickson.
about. Yeah, a little bit like that.
You know, Bonnie had back-to-back Sweet 16s that certainly gave her an extension, a well-deserved extension because of those two Sweet 16s. And this year is looking like it could be her last year, and then they had that boost, but now they've lost 2 in a row, so that'll be an interesting one to watch as well.
I've seen that a lot in Austin, too, people comparing Rick Barnes to Bonnie Hendrickson. It's all over the papers and the websites down there.
Yeah, since men's basketball is barely on the radar down there.
But he is that kind of guy that you think maybe he's lost it, maybe they're done with him, and then he finds a way and they make the Sweet 16. You know, he's one of those guys. But I agree. I think the time has come. I think they need to try something new. They need to find a guy.
Is, who's the guy?
Yeah.
You know, did they go to Greg Marshall at Wichita State?
That was Nick Krug's suggestion, our fine photographer, Nick Krug.
Did they try to get Tony Bennett from Virginia?
It'd be awesome, and it's a great time to go to Texas because football is not where it normally is at Texas. So you might be able to sneak in the back door and get a little love for your basketball program, especially if you're one of those guys, a hot name that brings some energy and some emotion. I would take the job.
It's a great job.
Yeah, I would take the job, and I wouldn't shoot a ton of threes.
You're not going to get offered it.
All right, finish it up here. Most obnoxious man in sports this week. Your turn, and I think we might know who it is.
It's Jarrence Howard, because not only did he get caught doing something you just can't get caught doing as a college basketball coach, but he didn't tell his boss. His boss, who's an easy boss in a lot of ways, maybe not easy, but a good boss.
Well, right.
And he doesn't like to be caught by surprise by anybody, much less his assistant coach. I mean, you know how these successful college basketball coaches are. They like to control everything. And he was caught by surprise, and he didn't like that.
At his press conference Thursday, Bill Self made it very clear that the thing that bothered him the most about this was that he was disappointed that – sorry, it's still me – disappointed that he was not told until Wednesday of this week. And that's understandable. I agree with you. It's obnoxious. And you know, young guy, I'm sure Jarrence Howard does feel bad about it.
Oh, I'm sure he feels awful about it.
Right. Lesson learned, move on, but it's going to be
very interesting. At least he doesn't have to face the K-State crowd. Those students probably would have come
They still might.
Dressed with tie-dyed shirts and headbands and sunglasses. Boy, that would have been really creative.
Hippie lettuce. Did you say that one earlier?
Hippie lettuce.
Yeah,
Is that what they call that?
I've heard that one, yeah.
I haven't heard that. I'll have to watch my Dragnets that I have DVR'd.
There you go. Any others that come to mind real quick that you didn't say earlier?
Mary Jane.
There you go. Good one. That's a good one. All right, my obnoxious person or man or thing in sports this week's the NFL or the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know which one, but one of them is responsible for putting wide receiver Riley Cooper as the February photograph in their annual calendar. The problem with that is Riley Cooper was outed last year as being a racist. He was caught on film at a concert using racial slurs and just being a total idiot. And February is Black History Month. You know, he's a receiver on their team. He's still a part of their team.
He's
put him
February
in June,
in there.
put him in July, put him December, whatever you want to do. But somebody missed the boat horribly on putting him February. I think that's really awful. The Eagles came out with a comment. Of course they did, right? And it says, "We do not oversee the production of the annual team calendar. Pass the buck, pass the buck, pass the buck. We do not provide any input about the players who are featured or where those pictures appear in the calendar. Pass it, pass it, pass it. The NFL licensed the product a production of that calendar to a third party, and we do not have an opportunity to review the material. Hey, maybe you need to try next time because you blew it here.
Yeah, you got to rewrite the contract.
Yeah, I mean, you look foolish. You look obnoxious. Let's just call it what it is. It's obnoxious.
It's
Riley
obnoxious.
Cooper is not Mr. February.
No.
He's like Mr. May 5th or something. That's Cinco de Mayo. He doesn't even deserve that.
No.
Like May 8th. What a joke.
And Jaron Howard's Mr. 520, 420?
420, April 20th. There you go. Fair enough. All right, well, that's all we got. Remember, at B.A. Smith at ljworld.com or at KU Sports or the comments right here. If you have reader comments and you want to jump in where Joe Ross was this week, thanks, Joe. And thanks to all of you for watching another KU Sports Extra. We'll see you next week here at KUsports.com.
We were shooting at a mountain of dirt. Well, nothing was broken, nothing was hurt. But I probably really should have been